Welcome everyone to Coach Unbox. This is a project by Unboxed Sports, an agency elevating professional tour tennis coaches on and off the court. My name is Yannick Yoshizawa, and I'm joined today by six-time Grand Slam champion Wim Fissette. Wim has been one of the most accomplished coaches on tour and has very recently joined Iga Świątek's team. Hey Wim, how are you doing today?
Hey Yannick, good, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, thank you very much. I've always looked at your profile and always impressed by everything that you accomplished, and definitely would like to dive into a little bit. But before we get started, love for everyone to know who Wim is, how you got into tennis, where you're from. Tell us a little bit of your young days.
Yeah, born in Belgium and still a resident in Belgium. I started to play tennis more or less when I was 7, 8 years old because my mom started to play tennis, and I was able to, or I had to join her to the tennis club, and then I found a wall that I could hit to, and that's how it all started. And immediately I loved the game of tennis. Tennis has, since that moment, always been a huge passion of mine, and I still love it.
And did you started, so your mom didn't put you with a coach, she just put you there and you saw a wall and you just started hitting, and then eventually you started being part of a team that were coached by someone. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess so. I think my mom was having her lessons, and I had to join because my father was working. And so at the beginning, I was just hitting against the wall. And then I think then it was time to put me in the lessons, and I started to do some group lessons and then also some private lessons because they thought I was pretty good. Yeah, I think every year more and more from that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I had to do a little bit of research because when we put your name out there, you see, six-time Grand Slam champion, coach several top 10 players, but also you were a pretty decent tennis player. I saw that you played Davydenko at one point, you played Mathieu at one point. So tell us that journey of, did you have that dream to become a professional tennis player? How did that unfold?
Yeah, I was always number 3, 4 in my country, behind 2 world-class tennis players, Xavier Malisse and Olivier Rochus. They were already under 14, under 16, under 18, like best in the world. So when I was 18 and I finished school, I didn't know really what to do. I was still pretty young physically, mentally, but my dad found a team in Germany to join, like a professional team with I think 3, 4 coaches and like 8 players. And so I moved to Germany when I was 18. I started to train there and then play some international tournaments, some satellites, where I think Roger Federer played one of his first satellite. And yeah, so I got one ATP point at some point, and then exactly, I lost to Davydenko in the second round. I had some injuries. It was definitely difficult. I was, again, very young. I needed a lot of time, but on the other side, it was also really expensive. So after almost 2 years, I decided that was it, and that was my tennis part in my life, and I decided to go studying. So tennis was a little bit on hold.
Yeah, so you went and got your bachelor's in management, and then you were, after that you were like, I'm just gonna go to as a business career. That was sort of like your mindset at that point.
Yeah, I started working in a company, but life is expensive, so I started to coach a little bit on the side, and I was able to they had the chance to coach some good players, and step by step my interest in the coaching was getting bigger, and I was spending more time also on the court. But still, there was not an example in my country, or there was not the belief that I could maybe become a coach on the tour one day. So I never thought that was an opportunity until I got the chance to work as a hitting partner in a tournament in Belgium. I met Kim Clijsters again. I was training with her when I was young, and from that time things changed a little. I went to hit with her a few times. At some point, I got invited to join her to a tournament, and that tournament was was the WTA finals in Los Angeles. So like that was a great opportunity and a nice adventure. And I was definitely thinking, you know what, this is not a bad life, and maybe this could potentially be something for me. More and more I was traveling with her, and then at some point I made the decision to make this my life.
You get into coaching Kim Clijsters, one of the best tennis players in the world at that point, especially. But how is that transition as a young coach? Got that opportunity to be a hitting partner and to travel with her. I'm assuming that she had her coach at that point and you were part of the team. How was that transition as of how do you get to that? Or like, is there a pathway? How did that feel for you?
Well, first of all, from the first, let's say, year and a half, I was traveling as a hitting partner, but I wasn't a full-time coach. So I already had like a lot of responsibilities. I was trying to help her on my way. But obviously, as an inexperienced coach, I was getting help from coaches that I trusted about some important decisions. Honestly, I've been doing that during my career. You know, if I have to make an important decision about the technique of a player and maybe making a little change in the serve or the forehand, those are big decisions when you work with top 10 players. So I always thought good to have like a second opinion of someone I really trust, someone who is biomechanically like super strong. So that's kind of what I did also with Kim. Then she stopped because she gave birth to her daughter, and that was a time for me that I could work or try to get more knowledge about coaching, more knowledge about technique. So I did all the courses in Belgium. I went to international seminars. I probably bought and read all the tennis books there were. So I was trying to get myself ready for if there would be another opportunity. Maybe she would come back. Maybe internationally I would get opportunities. But I was definitely like trying to get myself ready for maybe an opportunity.
Since we're on this topic, what's your favorite book that you have read as far as tennis and coaching go? Do you have one?
No, really, because of course there are some say ITF books about technique and biomechanics, and there are a lot of books about the mental game. I still think, I mean, Winning Ugly from Brad Gilbert is one of the best ones. I think every tennis player should have read that. I know it's maybe there are some examples of players that maybe this generation doesn't know them anymore, but I enjoyed reading that. Inner Game of Tennis is definitely also one of the classics. But yeah, I mean, I think the more you read, the more you can learn, and step by step have your own vision on things. You know, like you learn a little bit of this, you learn a bit of this. This is what you think is the right way to do, and you create your own vision. I think that's what it's about when you read a book.
So in that period, Kim decides to come back to tennis. You're part of her team, and you basically in 3 years you win 3 Grand Slams with her. And I think you were not even 30 years old at that point. And how did that feel of, as a 29-year-old winning a Grand Slam? Tell us a little bit of that journey of her coming back and getting the opportunity and then heading on to win several Grand Slams already.
Yeah, of course, I remember the call that I got early January. Yeah, that she was thinking about a comeback and that she wanted to start training again. So yeah, she made the decision at the end. We started in January to play our first tournament in July. So we had a long time to train, but we also needed that time. And yeah, it was an unbelievable journey. Like we had a great team. We worked really hard. We worked really well. And it's kind of a dream scenario, right? Like you work 7 months and then the third tournament you play, you win in the US Open. And not just you win the US Open, but you beat all the best players in the world, like Serena and Venus and Lina and Wozniacki. And it was just a dream scenario, let's say like this. And things continued really well after that. We won 3 out of the 6 Grand Slams she played. Yeah, obviously enjoyed that a lot. But on the other hand, I was this young, unexperienced coach, having the opportunity to work with one of the best players in the world. And obviously I was thinking, okay, is it me, or am I just lucky to work with such a good player? So when things stopped, that wasn't really clear for me. So I was really happy when, yeah, like with other players that I worked with to have continued success. Like that was for me really important.
Yeah, you work with her for about more or less 3 years. And then how is that mindset, right? When you stop working with such a great success, and as you said, it's such a young coach, in a way, also everything comes with pressure, right? Like now, Wim is this coach, has won 3 Grand Slams. What's next for him? How was that thought process once you stopped with Kim and you were like, what do I do now?
Well, Yannick, unfortunately, when you work as a coach, like it's more the interest of the player that comes to the coach. Like as a coach, you can't decide now I want to work with this or this. At that time, also, I didn't know what opportunities are going to come, and actually, one of the first phone calls I got was to work with a junior player. She was world number one at that time. She was 17 years old, and I thought, well, like again, I'm still like a young coach, and a junior like in transit to become a pro. That seems to be the perfect project for me. So that's what I did.
You work with Irina Kromacheva,
correct,
right?
yes.
And took her to her professional level tour, and
Yeah.
it was a completely different experience, I'm assuming, right?
It was and it wasn't. As a coach, you try to develop the player and you try to make the player better every day. You learn from experiences. And with her, of course, we went to junior tournaments, and then we went to $25,000 tournaments and $50,000 tournaments, like doing our homework, trying to make her better for the next week. And that's what we did. So that was, again, I'm happy I did that. I learned a lot, and I was also happy after that to get opportunity again to work with a top WTA player, Lisicki.
Yeah, so you go on to work with Lisicki, where she makes her Wimbledon final at that historic moment there. And then you just go on to continue to work with Halep, with Azarenka, Kerber, all these amazing players. And how is it? Because you look in other sports, and usually a coach is responsible for several players, right? If you look at soccer, you look at basketball, you have more than one coach, but also you have, which in tennis, you also have other coaches helping you from fitness and physios, but it's one person. And in tennis, you're traveling constantly. How do you see this difference, right? Where you're one-on-one most of the days with this player, that being on training sessions, that being on tournament competition, being back home in preseason. How is that? How much do you have to adapt to their personality, right? As well as their culture and traveling.
Yeah, like you said, you have to adjust. You have to find ways to coach the player the best possible way. Of course, it's a really intense job. Yeah? You're away for many weeks from family and friends. But at the end, you follow your passion, and coaching is what I love to do. You get the opportunity to work with a player, and you have to find a way to be successful and to make that player a better player. And that's what I'm focusing on, of course. Like you analyze the player and you make some choices, what you need to do better to improve. And that can be technical, that can be more tactical, it can also be mental. And you find the way to approach the best possible way. You need time for that. You can't start a new partnership and immediately from the first day putting your stamp on the player. Okay, this is the Wim approach. No, it doesn't work like that. I think every coach has a little bit his way of working, but at the end, like you need completely to adjust to the player. Over the past 15 years, I've worked with so many completely different personalities, characters, game styles, and yeah, at the end, you need to find the way for to success.
You go on to win several other big tournaments. You do the Sunshine Double with Vika on 2015-16, with only 4 other women have done that. So as the coach, seeing this different records that you're able to accomplish, I'm sure that people start to say, okay, you have to adjust, but also Wim has a methodology behind, like even though you have to adjust to different players, there must be something, some special secret sauce that this guy can bring to this player, right? Like, is there something that you really believe in, that being analytics, that being fitness, of course, it's a combination of everything, but is there something that has stood out to you that you've tried to implement into your coaching, no matter who the player is?
I don't think so. And honestly, I don't think there's any secret for success. There are no magic drills to do on the court, or there's no magic strategy. It's more about finding a way. And I think when I watch it at tennis, I can see a lot of improvements to be made. And when I start with a player, I see margin to grow, and you work on those things. And I think that is what it takes to be successful. And of course, with the top players, you have a full team. And ideal is, of course, if you can really work together with a few experts. And it's usually the coach that kind of makes a plan. Okay, together with the player, these are the 3 points we want to improve going into the next season. And then again, you sit all together with the fitness coach, with the mental coach, with the hitting partner, with everyone all together, and you make this plan and you work very closely together. And I think the teamwork and the communication on an everyday basis, that is the key for the success. And honestly, no, like if the forehand is not working, like you try to make that forehand work, and there is not one way, like, every forehand looks different. There is not a Wim Fissette forehand or a serve.
Yeah.
You just have to do the homework, but every single day.
Yeah, no, that's it's great to hear. For coaches who are listening, this is putting that hard work just like a player does. The coach also has to do their work, whatever it takes to figure out how to make that player better. Have you seen, now you started as a young coach in the 2007, 8, 9 to start winning your first Grand Slams, and you've been 15, almost 20 years on the tour. Have you seen a development in coaching? Do you see that you have had to evolve as a coach because of technology? Have you seen, now the players have a bigger team, or has it been more or less the same for the past 20 years, you would say?
No, I mean, first of all, tennis has evolved a lot. That's clear. The teams, like you say, a lot bigger. Most players have a bigger team now. Analytics have changed, where I remember, I think I was one of the first ones to use it. Again, I was going back to my story when I started working with Kim. I was this young experienced coach, and I still wanted to add something maybe that others didn't. And then I was trying to get my own data from matches, where I went to matches with a piece of paper, and I was making some dots where serves were landing and returns were landing, and kind of that's how I started to get into data. I was, for some opponent, I was watching 4 or 5 matches where I was trying to get some patterns, I think at that time players were way more predictable, because also I think they were not really aware of data. And where now everyone has access to data, most players are really using the data. Like, players are more aware, and they're way less predictable than they've been in the past. But also, again, tennis evolves, so there's more variation in direction in their game, with, let's say, also more spin, more speed. I mean, if I just look at women's tennis, physically they're much better athletes than they were like 10 years ago. So they're from their defense, they play much better than they did in the past. So yeah, I think tennis will always keep evolving. Players will always get better, and as a coach, yeah, you have to evolve too, and you have to find ways maybe to try to make a difference.
Yeah. I still remember back in the day when people used to put those little dots, and you've made the first serve, and then after all, my mom used to come back with me and say, "Oh, you missed on, 10 times on 30-0. There you have to work on those important points. So, well, yeah, definitely technology has changed, and I think it has helped the game evolve. I mean, looking at your curriculum, right? You've worked with so many great players, and as you said, with when you ended with Kim, you have that gap where you started working with Kromacheva at that point, and then you work through with other players. Whenever you have this gap, which happens in every single sport, while at the same time, tennis, it's very unique because it's not a team hiring you, it's a decision of a player. Did you ever feel like, well, I don't know when my next job is? And did you start thinking about, okay, do I start coaching at academy again, or like, no, I'm going to trust the process, I know a player is going to come? Because I think that when you look at other sports, and coaches have gaps, but I think because it's depending of one person's individual decision, and it's not, I would say, 5,000 soccer teams that are hiring. In tennis, the, let's say, professional tennis players are a little smaller compared to other sports. How is your process as a person of like looking for the next player and deciding what's the best project for you as a coach, but also for the player?
Yeah. Well, Yannick, that's the most difficult thing about this job, the insecurity. And, you can do a great job, but, at the end, the player decides. And if they want to go a different road, and that's what they do. Yeah, there have been a lot of moments where I was doubting my future. The insecurity is not easy to handle. And you never know when a new opportunity will show up. So that is really difficult. And the thing is, how we ever going to change that for the coaches, because I think that's something that is holding a lot of coaches back to get into this job, and they prefer more stable job at a good academy. And like this is not an easy job. It requires a lot. Like we're so much away from home, but then together with this instability, insecurity, that makes it really hard. And yeah, I've had some moments where it went very quickly, and I also waited like 10 months for a new job, which was not easy. Like you're kind of confident like something will come, but on the other hand, you don't know. Yeah, so I'm happy now after my last job with Naomi that almost only a month after I got a phone call if I was interested to work with Iga. So I'm very pleased things went quickly this time.
To get to that, you've got your 3 Grand Slams right out of the bat as a 30-year-old coach, and then you come on, and I guess 9 years later, if I'm not mistaken, you win your next Grand Slam with Angelique Kerber.
7 years.
So, I guess after the Australian Open 2011. Yes. So were you, in a way, because in tennis, it's so hard to win, right? Like it's one player out of 128 players, especially in the Grand Slams. But I'm assuming like your first, let's say, professional coaching job, you get 3 Grand Slams, and then you go every year, couple finals there, semifinals. But at the same time, everyone remembers the winner. So when you got to that point, did it feel any different? How was that, this 7-year gap, let's say, where you still had great results, but in also finally getting back to the trophy position?
Yeah, well, I mean, 2009, 10, and 11, it just went too easy, like it was not a realistic start of an international coaching career. A few years later, you realize how difficult it is to win a slam. It's more or less always the same names that win a slam, and like to be part of that, to be coaching one of those players is really special. And I was a few times pretty close with the Wimbledon final with the Siki, and then Halep final in Roland Garros, 3-set loss to Sharapova. We're pretty close, but still, you only remember winning the slams. And when I got the call to work with Angelique Kerber, that was definitely something that was in my head. Okay, this is an opportunity to win another slam, to win maybe Wimbledon, because I thought that was fitting her the best. And yeah, I mean, winning a tournament is super special. If you're top 10 in the world, you maybe win one, two, in the best case, three tournaments in the year, and all the other weeks you go home as a loser, and it's
Yeah.
not easy. So finishing a Grand Slam as a winner, being there at the end of the tournament when everyone is home, and yeah, it's a super special occasion, and that's why we do the job, to hopefully have more moments like this.
Yeah. And for people also maybe that don't know the day-to-day of the life of a coach, right, during these events, of course you're there coaching the players, preparing them for those big matches and whatnot. But tell the audience here the day-to-day in a coach, especially during these events, right? Because I think a lot of people see the players, they go, they practice, they go to their physio room, they warm up, they have to do their sponsor. But what is a day-to-day of a coach on a Grand Slam, to be more specific?
Yeah, let's say the day before the match is usually, from the practice, pretty light. You go to the site, you do, let's say, 45 minutes to an hour, like a little warm up. Then you hit for an hour, not too much that day. Most of the times have a quick lunch, and then the player goes back home, back to the hotel to rest for the next day. And then for a coach, of course, that's where the big preparations start. It's like analyzing the opponent, which is obviously a really important job, and it requires a lot of time if you want to do it really well. At the end, it's the player that hopefully is better than the opponent, but as a coach you try to have your 5% influence on hopefully the right tactic, or finding maybe a key to win the match, and you want to, of course, use all of your power to help your player win the match. So going through data, looking a lot of videos, and in my personal approach I always make a small video for the player to prepare about the opponent, about the strengths, maybe some weaknesses, the strategy to play, the winning patterns. And of course, you start also thinking about who is the opponent of tomorrow, what other challenges are going to be there tomorrow. Oh, maybe like it's the first time my player plays the semi-final of a Grand Slam. Okay, we need to speak about that. What does she need to know? How can we prepare her the best possible way? And so prepare that pre-match talk, which is obviously a lot tactical, but definitely a lot mental as well. And you wanna make sure your player goes on the court with the right expectations, the right tools for everything that might happen that day. And for me, that's a really important thing. And I think about it a lot the day before, and I write down things, and
Yeah.
most of the time around 4 or 5 the schedule comes out, so we need to book the courts. We want to be fast because we want to have the ideal court for the player, which is not always easy. Yeah, and
So
then
you're doing that. You're as the coach, you're, I guess, calling the practice
yeah,
desk.
yeah. So we get emails with the schedule, and then as soon as the email comes in, okay, we immediately call, because we know, okay, this player wants to play 2 hours before the match. This one likes to do it like only 1 hour for the match. So we discuss that in advance. So we book the court, and then we make a plan together with the team. We're gonna leave the house or the hotel that time. We arrive there and we do the warm up. So we get full schedules. Everyone's ready, and yeah, that's the day before the match.
When you started, coaching was not allowed, and now it is allowed. How has that changed? Has it changed much for you? From what you said, you do a lot of that preparation, making sure the player knows those patterns that it needs to happen. If the player changes, what they have to do. But now that coaches are finally allowed to help the players during the match as well, do you feel that it has changed your way, or is that when you're in the match there is just more emotional support, motivation, make sure that the player's pumped, or is there still strategy involved at that point?
I honestly think that we're still like in the process of like learning what we should do, like players and coaches, because like you said, I started from just like coaching was not allowed, to we had the on-court coaching that once a set we could go on court. You never knew when the player was going to ask you, so we always had to be prepared. I always had like 3 things written down from the first game,
Yeah.
and then change things to now like the off-court coaching. And again, you want your player to be fully prepared, but you also want your player to be able to think for themselves. We don't want to be in a situation that, you know, we start a match and yes, the opponent is playing the same strategy as we expected. But if my player is 4-1 up, yes, the opponent is going to change something. And then I want my player, of course, to be able to adjust. Like, I prefer them not to look at me like, oh, what's happening? What should I do? I want them to have answers. So a lot of those preparations start in practice, you know, like if the player misses a forehand, for me, it's important that my player knows, okay, if I do this, I need to think about this and this and this. Okay, and I can solve it. My serve is not working. Okay, I know I can try to focus on this and on this. And so I want my player to be very independent. But of course, we have the chance now also to change a match, you know. But that's always the interesting part. Like, my player is losing the first set. When are you trying to go to plan B or to plan C, or like have my player change the plan? So
and it's hard also because in tennis it's still, you're not on court, right? Like, the communication, it's not as, because sometimes you're with a lot of the fans around you, right? So it's not that like the player can hear you very clear, and you want to make sure the communication it's straight up to them, right?
Yeah, and that's a problem, because off-court coaching is allowed, but a lot of times we don't have the seats to really communicate with the player, and I think that is something that need to change in the future. In every sport, like when there's coaching allowed, and coaching is allowed in every sport, the player can speak to the coach. And now, like, we have to shout from far, but you know, like in Arthur Ashe, when it's a night session, you know, you can try it from my seat. Like, it's just not possible. So that's a difficulty. And when a player wants to know something and you try to say it, and it's like what?
What?
It actually, you know, like it's not helpful. It's the opposite. It makes things a lot more difficult. So I think the ATP, WTA, and the tournaments also have to do better. But I think I think coaching is part of sports, so it's good that we have the off-court coaching now.
I was picturing like Pep Guardiola or Bill Belichick in the middle of the crowd there on their big stadiums and trying to yell at their players on the field. It's a great point. And I think what we have seen and more is that there's more recognition on how much, in tennis especially, coaching has a huge impact on the performance of the players. All the way back, the sports of tennis came with the gladiator mentality that they figured out, which I would argue that all the athletes, if you're a soccer player or a basketball or a tennis player, you're still making decisions on the go there, because you have to make the decision and figure it out. The coaching is there to support you and suggest, but at the end of the day, you're still going to have to make that decision. And now, hopefully, as you said, there's a huge opportunity here, even from a media, storytelling, knowing what the coach tells the players, because it's big, right? I think it will benefit the players themselves, but it will benefit the audience to know what's happening. So then there's better coaches, better players, and so forth, right?
No, I agree. Yeah. I think it's really fun, and maybe go to a system where the player can just speak to the coach and speak after a set or something, and you know, fans can listen. You know, I think it's really interesting, because now with the off-court coaching, also fans don't really know what the coach is saying, or like they don't hear it. I think it's great there's off-court coaching, but it needs to be better. Yeah.
Now, shifting a little bit, when a little different than other sports as well. When you play soccer, there's one team versus one team. All the tennis tournaments, you have from 32 to 128 players there, which means 32 to most likely 128 coaches. How is the atmosphere? You know, like you're going to these tournaments and you're seeing all your rivals, but at the same time your colleagues. And you mentioned earlier here that you talk to different people to see what's best. Like, is there a good atmosphere? Respect, camaraderie around the industry?
Yes, for sure. I think especially with the top players, they're a little bit on their island with their team. So they usually do a lot with their team. But, you see your colleagues almost every week, and there's a lot of like respect. We all know we have the same passion for the game, and we all spend a lot of time away from family, and we all trying to do the best possible job for a player. So there are cool conversations about the serve technique or some different tactics, or it doesn't matter. Like we love to speak tennis. So yeah, I have good friends that are other coaches, and you try to beat them at the end of the day. But if they beat you, it's part of the job.
Now, leading a little bit on where you are today, you go on and you win another 2 Grand Slams with Naomi. And then she, of course, goes and has her baby, comes back, you train her, and now there's this transition from going to Naomi to Iga. How did it feel, right? The number one player in the world reaching out. I'm sure that it's always a great privilege to it, or at the same time, I think they see your curriculum and the value that you bring. But how was this process of transition?
The partnership with Naomi stopped. We had 4 really good years, and also the past year was great. Her coming back as a mother and with an unbelievable mentality. We more or less saw each other every day, and she showed a lot of motivation and really a lot of discipline to get better day by day. And I think we were definitely on the right way with her development, but the results were not as we had hoped for. And at some points she decided to try a new voice, and it's of course disappointing, but you also have to accept that the player has to do what they think it's best for themselves. So then, of course, it's a little bit of a waiting time. And I was, extremely happy when I got the phone call from the agent of Iga. When a partnership stops, you have a few ideal candidates in your head, and of course, you hope that the interest is mutual. So yeah, I was really happy when I got the first phone call, and I was really hoping that we could have the same expectation, the same goals, and that we have the same vision for the long-term future. And things actually went pretty quick, and here I am at the WTA finals.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, congratulations for that,
Thank you.
and best of luck on you. And now I'm gonna move a little bit, I guess, to your personal side. You're a father of 2, having 2 kids, and being a coach. How do you manage that? There's lots of parents in tennis involved. Some are coaches, some are not, and they try to help the best. But now you've been a pretty successful coach. So how do you see transferring that to your kids? Is that something, say, hey, you sort of decide, or you already give the tips to Iga, now you also give the same to them?
Yeah, well, first of all, the oldest is 9, the youngest is 6, and it's actually really interesting because they grew up with me being away. For them, like, Papa has to go to work meant that Papa was gone for several weeks, and they honestly didn't know anything else. So it was after, I think, when my oldest was like 5 years, that he came home and he said, hey, like, my friend's father is home every night. But, they're fine with it. My wife is there for them, and not much changes when I'm traveling. They're very much into tennis. I didn't push them. I offered them different sports, but they're fanatics as well, and they watch a lot of tennis, and they're actually doing really well. And on the other hand, they have their coaches, and it's a different job. I had my coaches courses where I also had certificates to work with young children, but it's been a while, and like, these experts, they do a fantastic job, and like, I love to watch it, what they do with the kids, and to teach them already proper technique when they're 6 years old. It's just really cool to see, and actually, like, you learn from every coach, so like, it's really good. But so now they're the biggest Iga fans.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. That's awesome. And during this process, when you also, I'm gonna say one of your side gigs, has been, trying to help other coaches with Unbox. Just touch a little bit of with that. Your just we talked about, the glamorous part of the coaches, the great things that comes with it, but also the hard parts with it. What was your motivation just to, let's say, spread awareness, but also provide support to more coaches out there?
Yeah, for me, what I love about my job is just coaching and traveling with the team and do everything what is my job. What I never liked was like contacting people to maybe get another job, do the negotiations, do the contracts. But of course, it's really important, like you do this job to support your family and you want things to be right. I never had like issues, let's say in the past, but speaking to colleagues, there have been some difficulties, coaches without a contract, and there have been some things that were not okay. For me, it was just important for myself also to have the support. I know like there's somebody who's helping me and making sure everything is well organized, and so I'm really happy with that. I felt from other coaches really the need to have this support. In the past, coaches were just by themselves, and sometimes there were coaches asking me like, hey Wim, what do you think about that, and how much can a coach ask? And at the end, like, I also don't really know. So the need for coaches to have support was very clear. And on the other hand, I also saw a lot of opportunities where now, especially with the off-court coaching, there's even more attention to the coaches. Coaches are very important, they're crucial in the development of a player. And from sponsoring, there are more and more opportunities out there. And the thing is to go after them, you need someone. And nobody is just gonna do it for you. And
Yeah.
so that's where I felt like, okay, like we have the need, we have the opportunities. Yeah, let's let's do this. And there was one more thing when, of course, we spoke at the beginning about the insecurity of the job. And I think in comparison to other sports, that tennis coaches are quite accessible. If you want to have a coach to give like a motivational speech, or maybe to analyze some players and to give advice, or to do like a clinic somewhere, like coaches
Yeah.
are accessible and are available, definitely when coaches are between jobs. And I think Unbox could also be a great opportunity to help coaches with their time between players and do some useful things.
I do think that can bring a lot of insights to the juniors, to other players that can also grow into professional tennis players. Now, when one question that I always like to leave for last. Now, you as a coach, if you could pick Wim Fissette at a younger age, and you could pick whatever age the young Wim Fissette was, and you could give him an advice, how old would be Wim, and what advice would you give?
I would have loved to coach myself when I was when I was younger. What I know now, I think I think I was a good player, and I always went 100%. I always had 100% effort. I had only one gear, and that's like full. The only thing that was missing was that to have that dream. Maybe I had the dream, but I didn't believe that. I was very rational, and that's also what I advise, like what I give as advice to young players. Like, it's okay to dream. If you don't dream, if you can't dream to win Wimbledon one day, it's not gonna happen for sure. So everything starts with a dream, and then of course you work towards that dream. For me, I know I was working hard, but did I truly believe that I could make it one day? No, for sure not. And
Yeah.
I think I mean, I come from a very realistic family, and I think they also wanted to protect me about being or having false dreams that I cannot achieve. For me, that's something I learned from all the players I work with. They all had this dream, so that's an important one.
Well, there you go. There you go. Young Wim, if you're hearing that, never know. Okay, well, I'd like to do a little rapid fire. So we'll ask a couple questions and not thinking too much, the first couple words that come to your mind.
Okay.
So first one is one word that describes yourself as a person.
Realistic.
One word that describes yourself as a coach.
Analytical.
What are you most proud of in your life?
My 2 kids.
What are you most proud of in tennis?
The respect I get from colleagues.
What's your current dream?
Winning the Australian Open.
What do you consider yourself as an advocate for?
To help the next or the current and the next generation of coaches, to help them to have a better and more secure life on the tour.
Is there any athlete or coach that you look up to?
Jürgen Klopp.
Who is your favorite team?
Man City.
Do you have a favorite book or podcast?
A lot of variation.
And then last question that I wanted to bring this up. You brought this up earlier today. Wim, all the success that you've had for the past 20 years, do you attribute this to hard work or luck?
Well, I definitely started with luck. But that's what I tell other people, I think everyone gets some chances in their life, some opportunities, First of all, you have to be prepared for that. I started as a hitting partner and that was completely new for me. I saw probably the opportunity, and then those 2 years when Kim was not playing, I prepared myself as much as I possibly could, and I think that was what I did really well. That was the best thing in my life, because then when I got the chance in 2009, that's where I jumped on that train. And of course, I was lucky that such a great player asked an unexperienced coach to be their coach. Of course, that's luck, but I'm sure I took that chance with both hands, and I worked really hard after that, and I know that every job that I have, if I don't do my work 100%, that it's not going to work. So I'll do whatever it takes to find success, and that's what I will keep doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Wim. Well, I appreciate it. This is Wim Fissette, 6-time Grand Slam champion and now coaching Iga Świątek. Wim, thank you so much for taking the time. Good luck on your new project, and I'll hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. Please follow the podcast here for more stories, and make sure to follow us on social media at Unboxed Sports. See you next time.